Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum, issue 2, W. Maxwell Prince writing with Martin Morazzo on the art. So last issue kind of ended with the tease of like Superman getting bigger with that second Kryptonite, and this issue does the whole like starting off a little bit further into the story where Superman is giant and fighting Atom Smasher in the middle of Metropolis, and some of the Justice League are kind of around trying to like figure out what to do. And it's like, okay, he's big, but he's also apparently been shot by a red kryptonite missile from Lex Luthor, which has turned him into an asshole as well. So now he's a stomping 100-foot tall Superman.
It's kaiju Superman. It's hilarious. Like, it's so fun. Like, and he pushes Atom Smasher down and telling him that, you know, because the climate crisis, the never-ending barrage of catastrophes, they did it to themselves, right? And, you know, there's all these big things going on, but now we also have a giant Superman wrecking Metropolis. Yeah. What a book.
So they also teased that Chemo is on his way to Metropolis, and that's when the book flashes back to the start of the timeline, if you will, where Superman's just started getting bigger. Batman's trying to figure out, okay, the makeup of the polymers or whatever look like this, but the next kryptonite, the speckled kryptonite's the inverse. So there's a good chance that that'll probably have the opposite effect and put you back down to normal size. But he keeps getting bigger, and they're not really sure what to do about it. He gets big enough that his head starts sticking out the top of the fortress, and his feet stick out the sides, and they're like, crap, like, what are we going to do? Batman actually has to get in the Batwing so he can like get up and talk to him at like sort of eye level. So Superman's like, look, eventually they're going to like notice me on radar and things like that because I'm huge. I'll tell you what, I'll go to Metropolis and we'll get Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen to put out the truth. A story just saying, hey, this is just Superman. He's really big, but he's not. Don't fear him. He's fine. Like, and Batman's like, didn't you just break up with her? It's like that doesn't have anything to do with this. Like I still trust her as a reporter. So that's his plan. He's going to go into Metropolis and just sort of casually hang about, and he meets Lois and Jimmy. Now, one of my favorite running gags in this issue, though, is the opening scene teased that Green Lantern's like evacuated a bunch of people from one of the buildings that was in danger of the kaiju fight. And one of the women complains that my life's work, that database, that spreadsheet that I spent all that time on is gone. And Green Lantern, John Stewart, makes a little dig about, oh, you should press Control S a lot if you're working on something important. But in the moment, it's not like much of a thing. But the payoff to it is that when we're building up to that same part of the timeline and we go into the side of this building, this woman is talking about this spreadsheet and how she's working on it like the entire time, and she doesn't care that there's a kaiju Superman walking around. It was legitimately pretty funny. Like, you know, they thought of a funny bit and they kept sticking to it, which kept making it funnier.
This woman cares about that spreadsheet more than I've cared about anything in my whole life. And the fact that she didn't ever think to hit, what did he say, Control S to save it every couple of minutes. It's like, oh, lady, you brought upon your own demise.
But some of the things she's saying, though, she's sitting on the computer when everyone else is watching at the window. She's like, I'm like the Da Vinci of data management. Yes. I'm like, there's no set of data that I can't wrangle into a nice handy spreadsheet and tabs. It's I don't know. I was cackling at all of this. It was just like a good sense of humor.
4 years of quarterly revenue, cost of goods sold and taxed by state, right? So that's all in one bubble, and then the bubble attached to it, the font gets smaller so she can keep expounding on all the stuff that's on here. And I thought that was a very funny gag, you know?
Yeah. So Lex is asking his scientist, like, crony, hey, what do you suggest? And he says, well, we've got Chemo at that, like, you know, off-site, like, lab.
Who's New Mexico.
Yeah, who's giant. And he's like, that's a good idea. But then the scientist sort of thinks about it and goes, actually, sir, maybe we shouldn't, because, like, who knows how much of Metropolis will get cancer if Chemo's, like, around. Like, he has, like, 4 times the radiation levels of Chernobyl. but he walks, or maybe the other scientist says that when they're told to let him free.
Yeah.
But like I was like, okay, I love that Lex is like, oh, I don't care, no biggie, like it's fine.
Yeah. And then he tells him, he's like, no, I don't want my 401 to disappear like, quote, the polar ice caps, or my wife and kids to die from inexplicable home gas leak. Yes, sir. So it's just like Lex is just threatening this man to poison all of Metropolis just to fight Superman with this chemical monster.
Yeah.
So he's a real POS.
Batman's trying to make a cannon that can deliver the correct kryptonite to shrink him back down back at the fortress. And Superman's talking to Lois and Jimmy when Lex shows up in his power armor and fires his red kryptonite missile. And I do appreciate that everyone knows what's happened here. Like, everyone knows this is red kryptonite. They know why he's acting this way. There's no confusion. But you get the big full page spread of him looking down, stomping around, being like, Metropolis, be afraid. So, you know, and that gets us pretty much to where the issue started. The fighting continues. Batman fires the kryptonite, the speckled kryptonite at him, which shrinks him down. And they also sort of, like, they have to get him shrunk down so they can blast him with some green kryptonite as well to fix the red. So that does that. And when Superman's back to being normal, he's like, oh shit, Chemo's like attacking the bridge into the city. I need to do something about that. Superman basically punctures a hole in Chemo and uses like a tube or like a hose as a straw and drinks all the radioactive material that makes up the inside of Chemo so that it can't get to the rest of Metropolis, even though it might still do some damage to him because it's radioactive liquid.
It's very Golden Age, Silver Age Superman dealing with the problem, right? Like there's a planet on the way to hit Earth, so he flies up and at max speed knocks it out of the collision.
And sure enough, like here, Chemo's like shell like collapses into the water, and Superman's like stumbling around, like spitting out radioactive material. And there was a tease earlier that they were waiting on someone else from the Justice League, and the only clue we had. Yeah, well, I didn't say kid, but they just said the clue we got was that he, like, you know, maybe he'll say his dog ate his homework again, right? They don't specifically say kid, they say that. And then when you get to the end of the issue, you hear this bubble from off panel saying, you know, my dog actually did eat my homework this time. And then the reveal on the last page is that this was Captain Marvel, Shazam. But that's only part of the last page. The other part of the last page is that whatever effect the radioactive gunk combined perhaps with the kryptonite effect still.
The speckled.
Yeah. It's de-aged Superman, and he looks like Superboy, and that's what Shazam says. He's like, "Is that Superboy?" And everyone's freaking out. So that's the cliffhanger. He's de-aged to a teenager, and also Captain Marvel's here, and they call him Captain Marvel in the next time one. Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah, which is huge, and I also like that it says in the caption, it has the man and Superman crossed out, and then boy written over it. I thought that was very funny. And then all of the allusions to Alice in Wonderland through here, like Batman uses the riddle that I forget who says it in the original story of how is a raven like a writing desk, right? And that goes on through, and then the way that Superman keeps growing up through the Fortress of Solitude.
Well, to just clarify, he says that because he knows that because the Mad Hatter said it to him. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Mad Hatter.
The Mad Hatter in the original story, yeah. I don't know the Alice in Wonderland story from the book that well, but yeah, he says that it's the Mad Hatter. But then there's the allusions to the Disney cartoon where she grows, she eats the thing or drinks the thing that makes her grow, and she, you know, the foot comes out through the door and her head comes up to the roof. Same way that Superman comes up to the fortress, which I thought was a lot of fun. And then they talk about using the opposite with the spectacled kryptonite and speckled. You know, very similar. Speckled. Thank you. And it's very similar to, you know, the eat me, drink me stuff from Alice in Wonderland. So whole lot of fun. This is one of those books also that I saw came out this week where I went, oh yeah, I get to read this week. That's definitely a good week because this was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah. I think the pacing was even Like, the one thing I complained about in issue 1 was the pacing was a bit weird because it was so wordy for the first like chunk.
Yeah.
I think this issue kind of got around that because it just started off with the action, it teased some of the big stuff happening, and then had a good pacing throughout till we got to the end, and all the stuff that they were doing was fun. Chemo coming in was fun. Lex being just absolutely evil and not caring if he like, turns like half the city into like a cancer-ridden like mess. Also, just all that. I like that characterization, and the art's very kind of solid and very consistent. Like, it's not, it's very simple layouts where there's choices being made over which panels are in boxes and which go all the way to the gutters, and like when there's negative space used, but everything's, rectangles and squares. There's no like wonky panel shapes. There's no anything like that. It's all simple shapes, but there is like intentional thought going into the layouts, but it makes it feel very consistent and arguably kind of old school, even though it's not just doing a grid like an old Silver Age comic would do. It's a bit more in depth than that, but it does feel like it's sticking to those straight boxes because it wants to feel kind of old school as well. Well, at least that's why I think.
Yeah, like when Luthor dons his power armor, right? The way that goes, where each of the panels makes up like a piece of what goes on to him, but just the way that it goes, it looks like it's enveloping him as we read. So it's a really fun piece of breakdown. Yeah,
it feels like close-ups. Like if you're watching this in a movie, it feels like the camera's getting close for like certain things clicking into place, and then you get the big panel at the bottom with him standing in his outfit, which is a bit pointier than it usually is, I'll say, in this design. But yeah, no, I had a good time. It was a fun read.
Yeah,
and credit to it for being twice the length of a regular issue, pretty much. It didn't feel like it felt longer in the sense that I definitely knew it was longer, but it didn't feel like a chore to get through. I wasn't like, thinking like in the back half, oh god, this is going on forever kind of thing.
Yeah, no. In fact, when I got to the end, I was kind of shocked just because the pacing was so brisk. It snuck up on me. So yeah, a lot of fun.
All right, well, we'll see what happens with the Superboy shrinking next issue. What are you giving Kryptonite Spectrum issue 2?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
I think I'm inclined to agree with that score. I think I agree with that score. It was a good time. Fun having a Black Label book that's not like, as much as there've been a lot of good Batman ones, it's nice to have a Superman one.